right, we'll go ahead and continue with UCLA head coach Jim Mora. And again, coaches and student athletes will be available this afternoon for additional one-on-one opportunities during the lunch hour, and that's from 1:30 to 2:30.
Good morning, and good morning. You hear me now? Just make a brief statement, then introduce our two student athletes that are here with me today. We're really excited about this upcoming season. A lot of things that we're looking to accomplish. We've had a tremendous off-season of work in the weight room and on the practice field, and I'm excited about the direction that we're headed as a program and as a team. The obvious question for us this year that I've been asked already 100 times in the last 2 days is who's our quarterback going to be. So I can just tell you right now, before anyone asks me again, I don't know. And when I know, I'll let you know. With that, I'll introduce two outstanding young men, great representatives of not only UCLA, but I believe college football and their families and themselves, who are here today with me. Our first one is our starting center, Jake Brindle. He'll be a 4-year starter, 3-year captain, tremendous young man who does it the right way and gets it. And the second young man is outside linebacker, rush in from Houston, Texas, who had a tremendous year last year, in my opinion, is growing into a great football player, and once again, just an outstanding young man, and that is Deion Holland. So they'll be with us here today. So,
all right, with that, we'll go ahead and have a breakout session here. Again, the two student athletes are in the back of the room and coach up here in front. And for those who may be having some wireless issues, ignore the security code on the card at your table, and it is all lowercase, conference and chat.
So Jim, who's your quarterback?
It was a little later. 20 seconds later.
Coach, how confident are you just looking at the quarterback situation as far as being able to have to make a decision so late?
Well, I think, am I speaking to this thing? With regards to the quarterback situation, I think the thing that gives me some measure of comfort is knowing that we've got a pretty veteran group around that play, whomever it may be. We've got an experienced offensive line. We returned the Pac-12's leading rusher, Paul Perkins, as well as some other really good backs. We've got an experienced and I think pretty talented receiving corps, although maybe not with the marquee name. So it's very unlike Brett's situation from 3 years ago, where Brett had to kind of step in and do a lot. Whoever's taken snaps from Jake can depend on those around him a little bit more than maybe Brett was able to do. So that gives me a little bit of comfort.
You talked about the defense, you're pleased with the defense, you're looking at Deion and what he's doing and what he's bringing, potential lot impact finalists. What is the defense? How does that rank year out?
Well, we'll see when we start playing. We have a new defensive coordinator in Tom Bradley, who I think has brought a lot to our program. From an experience standpoint, he's mature. He's had a tremendous amount of success at this level. He's been great for me to be around. You know, having spent so many years with Coach Paterno, he has a unique perspective and a fresh perspective. So I'm excited about that. I think our players have really embraced his philosophy, his personality. I think they're excited about what we're doing schematically and the aggressive nature that we're going to play with in terms of trying to force our opponent to adjust to us. And I'm excited to see where we go. We returned a pretty good group there. We've lost some great players as well. You know, when you lose the Butkus Award winner and the Lot Impact Award winner, and Eric Kendricks, you know, those are some big shoes to fill. But that's college football. And we've got some guys that are excited to step up and play in his place. What does Deion Holland bring to the table? He's an explosive pass rusher. He's got an amazing first step. Sometimes officials are getting ready to reach for their flag because he looks like he's getting off before the snap, but really he's not. You know, he studies the game. It's important to him to be good. He's really developed physically, and he's become a player that we see reaching the potential that we recognize when we recruited him.
Jim, what have you seen from Josh Rosen since spring practice, physically, development?
I haven't seen Josh as much. You know, there's a lot of rules that limit us to seeing him. He's come through my office. I haven't seen him throw. I haven't seen him work out. But I know that he's put on some weight. He's about 215 pounds. He looks solid. I think that, you know, he's a unique kid. You know, you hear that phrase, mature beyond his age. I don't know about that. I think that he's got a high football IQ, and he's very competitive. So I'm excited to see how he competes along with Jerry and Mike.
What have you seen out of Jake Brendel as far as his leadership is concerned, especially in the spring when he was kind of an acting coach for that position?
Jake is very mature. He's very passionate. He commands respect of his teammates. You know, like I said, he'll be a captain again this year. He'll be a 3-year captain. When you do the vote, the captain votes, it's very rare that a ballot doesn't have Jake's name on it. That's how highly his teammates think of him. He's been a very consistent performer at UCLA. There's a lot heaped on his shoulders this spring, and he responded very, very well. He comes out every day with the mindset to compete and get better. I think he's a great teammate, a great team member, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to spend what will now be, our 4th year together.
And what could you tell us about your experience at the Special Olympics? I read that you walked out with Nepal, was it,
Yeah.
for the opening ceremony?
Well, I've been involved with Special Olympics for over 30 years. My wife Shannon's older sister has Down syndrome, so we initially got involved with it as a couple then. She'd been involved with it forever. My wife serves on the board of directors of the Washington State Special Olympics and the Georgia State Special Olympics. We've been the honorary chairs of Louisiana, Georgia, and Washington State Games. And then this year we asked to be the honorary chairs for the beach communities. So we hosted Hungary and Nepal down in Manhattan Beach and took their athletes to the beach, which was really, really cool to see some, I call them kids, they're not kids, athletes that had never been in the ocean, boogie boarding and body surfing and things like that. But the highlight for me was being able to walk in with Nepal Saturday night at the Coliseum. And it's a small contingent, only 5 athletes, I think 9 total people. You're talking about a country that suffered a devastating tragedy with the earthquake. They still have millions of people living in the streets. It was a tremendous challenge for them to even be able to get to Los Angeles and participate in the state games. But the energy that you felt walking down that tunnel and walking out onto the stage and being able to listen to the motivational speakers, or the speakers that were so motivational was amazing. Just, I think it puts a lot of things in perspective. And these athletes, it's not always about winning and losing. It's about competing and enjoying competing. And so it's eye-opening.
Coach, talk a little bit how tough it might be to have 2 scholarship quarterbacks with the
3. Mike has a scholarship.
Right, okay.
There you go.
With Ashante Willard having left.
Well, hopefully we only play with 1. So, I'm still adjusting in some ways to college football. So my perspective, I think, is sometimes a little bit different than others. In the NFL, you have 3 quarterbacks, and that's a lot. And you hope you never get to number 3. And so I kind of look at it that way. Maybe I'm wrong in looking at it that way. And I know you have to continue to build your roster with young players, but I'm confident that we have 3 players that any one of them can step in and be productive if they depend on the people around them. People around them do their jobs, and we play good defense and good special teams, and I think we will.
Is there a point in the next?
I was going to say, you qualified it there. I'm interested to see if the level of maturity that I felt through spring ball was in fact what I believed it to be. When we came out of spring practice, I felt like our team had reached a level of maturity that we've been striving for. And the level of maturity to me indicated an element of mental toughness and consistency that we've been looking for. I felt like we reached that to some level in spring ball. I want to see if it was real, and if we can maintain that through the 3 weeks leading up to the Virginia game and then through the course of the season. So that for me is something that I'm looking for.
Is there a point in the next month where it might hamper the offense not to have a quarterback officially named?
I think that there's that potential. There's always that potential, and I think that's something that you have to be concerned with. I think that any time you can make decisions and put people in place so that there's some synergy, especially offensively, it's helpful. But regardless of who the quarterback is, the system's not going to change dramatically. They're all very similar in their skill sets and what they can do and what we're going to do offensively. What I am after is competition, because I think competition, brings out the best in everybody. So it's trying to balance wanting that great competition with wanting to have that synergy that's so important on offense. And that's where it gets a little tricky. And hopefully we do a good job of that.
Jim, kind of a unique story this summer. You've auctioned off like half of your football experience for Avery Huffman. Why was that such an important cause for you?
Well, because I'm human, and the Huffman family was hurting, and they needed our help. And it wasn't me; it was the Bruin community, to me, that made these tremendous gestures. And I've talked to Tracy a lot about it, and so many things that people don't know that haven't come out about people reaching out through the Bruin community around the country to offer their support of Avery. And I just felt it was something that I could do to maybe set an example and help. And you know, that's what I think you're supposed to do. I think that's part of being a productive human being, is helping others when they need help.
Is that like something you've ever done before, auctioning off experiences for your football team?
Well, I do it sometimes for my foundation, you know, which benefits at-risk and in-need youth. But I just, in talking really to Tracy, who kind of helped me with this, we just saw it as a way to give people unique opportunities to experience things that they may not be able to experience, and at the same time really help a family and a young lady who desperately need help, you know. And so, you know, I just would encourage everybody to find a way to help somebody that needs our help. We're all very fortunate. I'm incredibly fortunate. I have 4 very healthy children, a great wife, a great family, a tremendous job, lucky. And, you know, you just don't want to ever take those things for granted. And, you know, he's a great dude, you know, and it's a hurting little girl, so you do what you do, you help them. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're all supposed to do.
Do you have thoughts on the current state of the Pac-12 South?
Well, you know, I can get a lot of those Pac-12 South questions, and it's a tremendously competitive division. But I think, as a whole, the Pac-12 is tremendously competitive. You know, it's hard for me to anoint the Pac-12 South. We haven't even won the Pac-12 championship in years, you know. But I can tell you this: whoever comes out of the Pac-12 South representing the South in the Pac-12 championship game will have earned it, day in and day out, week in and week out on that field, because it's going to be challenging as it gets. And we'll be battle-hardened and ready for whatever's next.
Jim, you've been in the conference now a few years. What's the biggest challenge on the recruiting trail, recruiting against some of these coaches?
Well, it's competitive because there's a lot of high-profile coaches, a lot of exciting style brands of football being played around the conference. You know, every city that a Pac-12 school is located in is a desirable location, academically challenging, you know, so for parents that are interested in that, you know, every campus offers something unique. I think California is very unique in that, you know, we have so much talent. Southern California to the state of California, it's imperative that we try to, you know, recruit our share of athletes to UCLA. But it's a daily battle. You know, you can't take a day off, and whether that's direct message through Twitter or Facebook, or, you know, connecting through a phone call. It's important that every day you try to stay connected. Recruiting has changed a whole lot in just the 3 years I've been 4 years, I guess now I've been doing it.
Well, this time of the year and going into camp, just how shy have you been about anything?
No, I'm always excited. You know, every year for me is just a new proposition, a different proposition. I can't say I'm ever more or less excited. You know, there's always questions that need to be answered. There's always expectations that you're trying to meet. I'm talking about internal expectations. There's always, for me, I love to coach football. I love to compete. I love to be around these men. And you know, I'm pretty blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. I'm always excited. Usually pretty fired up on the football field.
Jim, when you talk to your team, do you talk specifically to them about winning the national title? Or do you say Pac-12 title?
We are talking about the process more than anything right now. I think that's something that we've learned, you know, maybe through last year, you know, the expectations that were placed on us. And maybe even though we tried not to look that far down the road, that at times we took our eye off what we were trying to accomplish on that day and peaked up. So right now, our emphasis is just becoming mentally tough, disciplined, focused football team that plays with consistency and tries to be better today than we were yesterday and tomorrow than we were today. And that's where we're going right now.
you're sort of getting at this, but last year there were a lot of very high external expectations. You guys were a hot team this time of year. How would you compare that to the feeling you're getting this year? Do you feel like you're a little bit more of a sleeping giant potentially, or and not that you want to brag, but you know?
I think that we're a team that has potential. I think we have a gigantic unanswered question at a very, very prominent position, quarterback. I think we've got a group of men that are very dedicated to trying to be the best that they can be, and we have to maintain that focus. And as I said, find that level of consistency that we have not been able to attain in the last 3 years. And if we can do that, then we will have a chance. But that's a tough task, and it's something we have to focus on every single day.
Last year, you invited the Pac-12 networks and the drive kind of into your program, and you're seeing these other programs try to do that in-house and kind of recreate that experience. I just wondered what you thought of that experience and would you do it again?
I would absolutely do it again. I thought the Pac-12 network did a tremendous job. They were unobtrusive, they didn't get in the way. As a matter of fact, they assimilated very, very well into our team. They gave us editorial control, so the message was really our message. They're easy to work with, they're fun to work with, and I think that they want to tell the positive stories. You know, I think sometimes people would liken it to what HBO does with the NFL, I don't know what it was called.
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks, you know, was not always painted in a positive picture because some of the storylines weren't positive and there was drama. And what the Pac-12 did a great job of is telling the stories of these tremendous and unique student athletes, and also the story of our school and our program. And so for us, it was a great experience, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Have you sensed any tangible benefits from that community outreach and recruiting in this?
You know, I don't know. You know, I think what it did is it gave us a chance to expose our program to people nationwide, kids, families that maybe were interested in recruiting or that were interested in UCLA. But I don't think that on signing day anyone signed and said, hey man, I signed because of the drive. You know, but I do think that it helped our fans, which to me is one of the most important elements of your program, get a deeper look into why we do what we do and to some of the personalities on the team that they really only see from the stands or on TV. And that's neat, you know, when you get to spend 20 minutes learning about Jordan Payton and his love of, you know, fashion world, or Jake Brendel and his motorcycle, or Kenny Clark and his family history. You know, those things, those are great stories about these student athletes that need to be told.
Jim, what do you think the kind of glut of quarterback talent in the league right now is going to mean for kind of the quality style of play this season?
When you say glut, you mean like...
There's a lot of good quarterbacks.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were talking about there are not a lot of there are. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy how many great quarterbacks there are in this conference, and they're also different, you know, and because they're great college players doesn't mean they'll go on and be great NFL players, but they're great college players and they present different challenges every week. You know, when you talk about just I'll just pull out 3 names, you know, you talk about Kessler and Solomon and Goff. Okay, I'll just pull it and let's talk about Bervici, he's here too. They're all tremendously effective doing what they do, and yet they're all so unique in the way they play the game. And so it presents real challenges for you defensively.
If Rosen, his ceiling, does he fit in with that group and just look at what he's capable of?
I don't know. We'll see. You know, he hasn't taken a snap at this level, so I don't want to put too many expectations. I'll let other people put those expectations on him. You know, I want Josh to reach his potential. I think if he reaches his potential every day, at the end of his time at UCLA, we'll look back and say it was a success.
Coach, how are you injury-wise with some of the players that didn't participate in spring?
You know, Trace, I think we're in good shape. I think there'll always be things that come up. You know, they always do, the unforeseen. But the latest injury report I got was very positive. And hopefully it stays that way, but it won't.
Kenny Argioki,
He's made a lot of progress, and I don't know exactly what his status will be for the start of camp. Simon Goins has made a lot of progress. I don't know what the status of what his workload will be like at the start of camp. Hopefully, both of those guys are cleared for full activity. Caleb looks great. I saw Caleb Monday in my office, and he looks good. He said he feels good. He said his legs never felt better.
Scott Quisenberry, is he still intended to redshirt?
Yeah, Scott had both shoulders done, and later on in the season than Randall did. Randall's ready to go. Randall go for it. Scott's not, and the plan is to redshirt him and give him chance to heal completely. It's just really too hard to play at this level, especially at that position with two completely repaired shoulders.
Do you want to move? Do you want to move Scott to center for when Jake leaves?
Well, I don't know. I think that's a long ways down the road. We'll worry about that in the spring. I want to try to win some games this fall before I worry about where our red shirt's going to play.
Goins and Ben are both healthy. Do you foresee them down at the right tackle, or would you consider shuffling them?
I consider all 22 players and our kicker, snapper, and holder to all be and punter to all be battling every single day for their positions. How about that?
Even though you haven't seen them, you've gotten some reports from workouts from your strength and conditioning. What's the report been on Soso Chamava?
I have not. I'm actually not allowed to get reports. And so I did get a report from one of our players who just kind of happened to say, this kid looks really good. But I don't want to go any deeper than that with them because I know that Sal's not allowed to talk to me about it. I think the players probably are, but when I was talking to this young man, it wasn't necessarily about that. But I've heard from this player that he looks pretty special.
What's Stephen Manfro coming back from his ACL?
Interestingly enough, that was another name that came up with this player that I was talking to, and he said, I didn't know that Stephen Manfro was so fast. And so I'm taking that to mean that he's ready to go. And talking to our athletic trainer, Anthony Venuta, and our doctor, Dr. DiFiore, they've indicated that he's ready to go. So he's a guy that I think is kind of flown under the radar because he didn't play last year. I was talking about Paul Perkins and Nate Starks and Soso and Bolu and Craig Lee and let's not forget about Stephen Manfro. He's been a productive player for UCLA.
You anticipate him being part of this offense?
Yeah, we're trying to get as many guys involved as we can. I think it's really important that you try to create a role for every player on your team so that they feel significant and they feel important and they feel valued. I think you get the best out of them when you create that environment.
Jim, you may not realize this, but you're a senior this year as a fourth year.
I'm a senior?
Didn't redshirt. So how would you say you've evolved in the 4 years at UCLA? How have you changed from year one to this?
You're probably better at making that distinction than me. I think I'm more patient, and I don't think my expectations have changed, nor my intensity or passion has changed. I think it's probably channeled in a better direction. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, a lot of mistakes, as we all have in life, and you try to learn from them, and I think, I'm continuing to do that and applying going forward, but I know this, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I love it. Every day going to work is a joy for me, and being at UCLA is tremendous, and being involved in college athletics and having a chance to work with these student athletes at this point in their life is very rewarding, and it's what I want to do, so I'm happy right now.
There's a point
Jim, I know you said.
Oh, welcome to the USC Trojan.
I'm
Husky,
not.
Washington Husky.
Okay.
Lindsay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just like to call you out because you call me out.
I know.
Yeah.
How about kettlebells? No, okay. That's not the real question. I know yesterday you said your focus is the first game of the season. Obviously the rivalry with USC. Where do you think you guys are at? Obviously you've won the last 3. Have you kind of looked ahead to what the game's going to be like this season?
No, I really honestly haven't. That's not my nature. I just feel like it's a disservice to everybody involved with our program, fans, students, players, if you start, my lessons, in the way I am, if I start looking ahead, then I lose focus on what I need to focus on. So when I've failed, it's because I've looked ahead. So that's one thing I've learned. Don't look too far down the road. So I'm looking at Virginia. Actually, I'm looking at August 9th, San Bernardino.
Was it awkward sitting on a set yesterday with Steve Sarkisian?
No, Steve and I have a great relationship. We go way back. He helped me get involved with college football. I have a lot of respect for him. And, our relationship has changed because now we're crosstown rivals. It's not as friendly. We compete every day in recruiting and then, once a year on Saturdays. But, no, it's never awkward being around Sark for me.
There's a point last season where you said you thought your team played better as kind of an underdog. Do you feel like you get to enter the season with more of that edge this year?
Well, we don't have the external expectations that are placed on us. Hopefully we won't have the focus on us. I would like no one to ever rank us, and I'd like no one to ever cover us, and I'd like to never be on TV, and no one to ever talk about us until the end of the year, but that's not going to happen. I think what's important is that we, like I've talked about, focus on just being the best we can be that day. and it's hard to do, especially when you're dealing with these young men that are so influenced by social media and have so much access to information and what's being said about them. It's hard to maintain that focus, but we've got to strive to do that, and it's not easy, but it's our goal. And if we can do that, we'll be okay.
Coach, speaking of the Virginia game, I've heard different coaches say for first games, sometimes they'll start working out in spring, fall camp, or then or wait till normal practice week. How are you going to handle that? And that was a pretty tough game for you last year. Tell us about the first game.
Well, their defense kicked the dog out of our offense. Unfortunately, our defense played well and gave us a chance to win. We take the approach that John Wooden always had, which is, take care of your own house and, worry about fundamentals and technique and your assignments. And then we'll start preparing Virginia in earnest a week and a half before that game. I think sometimes when you start too early, things can become stale for your players. At least that's my experience. And so we'll start working on them about a week and a half before the game. And they're, we'll know what to expect, I think, based upon some of the things they did last year. We were playing with a quarterback who was entering his third year as a starter, and they blitzed us crazy. Well, they're going to be seeing a quarterback that's never taken a snap. So I would imagine they're going to blitz us. I didn't say it, but never started a game. You know what? That's never started a game. I'm toying with the idea of not even playing with the quarterback in that game and just going with, what do they call it, the Wildcat the whole game. So we'll see.
Coach, talk about your team speed overall.
Our team speed,
yes.
It's improved. That's something that we're always trying to improve upon. Our guys benefit greatly from our strength and conditioning program. We have, in my opinion, the finest strength and conditioning coach in the country. And we have access to guys like, Jim Bush, who was, a world famous track and field coach. And, we try to access all those things. But our team speed is improved. It's not where we want it. It never will be. We're always going to try to get faster. But, really functional speed is what you're looking for. Speed on the football field between the lines, not so much the 40 time.
On a national level, was there an opportunity lost with USC down the last 4 years, or does that not make a difference? And how is the rivalry now that they're the favorites to win the Pac-12? How does that affect you at this point with the opportunity, if it was lost the last 4 years?
Like what opportunity lost to beat
to
them?
get to a national championship game or something like that.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, not to be rude or disrespectful. I mean, we beat them 3 years in a row, so I don't know about any lost opportunity there. Winning a national championship is more than just about beating your crosstown rival. It's about, beating Stanford, which we haven't done, beating Oregon, which we haven't done, not having those missteps that we've had along the way at times, that have kind of ruined our chances. We went into last year's Stanford game with a legitimate chance, maybe not a completely realistic chance, but a legitimate chance to maybe get into the playoff. And we laid it, I shouldn't say we laid it in. We didn't lay it in. Stanford beat us soundly. So those are the things that I look at more than just USC. USC's never down. Come on, man. It's USC.
Public count question here. What are your expectations this year for Eddie Vanderbilt?
Well, I think Eddie is a tremendous talent. He's had 2 really successful seasons for us. When you're a defensive lineman, your name isn't always the first one that people say or talk about, but he's lived up to the expectations that we had for him when he came in as a 5-star recruit. He's a unique player. He's an amazing athlete. We stood on the field at Colorado last year, and he hit the goalpost with a football from 70 yards away. I don't know if you guys noticed, he's a really good high school pitcher. He's a lefty. We call him Kung Fu Panda because he's just this limber guy. You remember 2 years ago, we were playing Arizona State, and it's 4th and 2, and if we don't convert, the game's over, and we lost the game anyway. We throw it to Eddie coming out of the backfield, on a little bootleg pass. So he's just a unique athlete. I think he's going to have a great year. He's had a really good offseason, and I think he's anxious to play well.
Fourth quarterback.
Our 4th quarterback? We're Wildcat. We're going Wildcat all year.
Would you be open to sliding Caleb to guard if Simon wins that right tackle job?
We're open to anything, really, you know, but the one thing I don't want to do is just create this situation where there's too many moving pieces. You know, I think we've gotten to a point where there is some consistency finally amongst the offensive line, and even with the backups, you know, we can slide a backup in and really have that guy be a guy that's played a lot. So, you know, as much as we can remain consistent with how we practice and playing games with that personnel, I think it's going to benefit us. But yeah, we'd be open to anything, but not necessarily anxious.
Do you have a deadline for Rosen versus Neuhauser versus Faithful? Is there like an August 15th that you want to hit or anything like that?
No, you know, I remember 3 years ago I did it with Brett and Kevin and those guys, and then we decided before that. I think it just happens when it happens.
Okay. With Justin Combs, I know people are going to ask, is he still on the team? What's the story with him?
We've had no changes to our roster.
Coach, I hate to beat the quarterback thing, but I spent the last 2 days at the Mountain West. A lot of those coaches have new quarterback situations coming in, and I asked almost every one of them, would you consider using two? I got a wide variety. Some coaches said never, some said maybe. Is that a possibility for you, or would you rather go with one, or do you see a scenario where you use
I would rather use one. I think that's the most beneficial way to build your team and consistency is to use one. But, you know, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, my gut instinct is to name a guy and support the hell out of him. That's what I've tried to do.
You're not violently opposed, though, if that's the best thing?
I'm for whatever seems to work. You know, I think every situation's fluid. I think you start to become dogmatic as a coach, and I think you lose opportunities to grow. So you have to be open to change if it's going to benefit your team and help you become better.
Coach, you talked about consistency before, how you guys need to be more consistent. Last year, the team had an awful lot of penalties. What have you done?
Last year, like every year.
Oh, every year.
Yeah.
What have you done during spring, and what do you anticipate doing during fall camp to cut down on the number of penalties?
That's a good question. During spring, what we did is we brought officials in more, and we created more game-like situations where we asked them to throw the flag and be, you know, very picky about what they were seeing, and then we asked them to explain to our players the structure of the rule, the interpretation of the rule, and why it was a penalty. You know, at times, you know, we might make a guy run a lap or something and did a penalty. I don't necessarily subscribe to that philosophy. I think one of the things that'll help us is that, you know, we've been a young team. And I don't want to use that as an excuse, but as a reason. We've been a young team, and sometimes guys haven't been as well versed in their technique as maybe they should be, and so they get handsy or grabby. Hopefully now that we're a little bit more experienced and more fundamentally sound, we'll be able to avoid some of the things, some of the cheap things that guys have to do when they get behind in a play.
What would you say if to an observer who seemed to think that the officials in spring ball didn't seem to be calling it very tightly?
I wouldn't say anything because I've never heard that.
Coach, in the spring, Vernon Adams said that when he was thinking about transferring, he reached out to you guys and found there was some mutual interest. What made it attractive to you as a staff?
We never had any discussions about Vernon.
Okay. He said that you guys had talked, so that didn't happen?
I never talked to him.
Okay.
Never talked to anybody about him. I didn't. Yeah.
Coach, Jake said that one of the big problems in the Stanford game was that they showed you guys a lot of unscouted looks, a lot of stuff that you hadn't seen before. Moving forward with a new quarterback and into this season, how do you better prepare your team for unexpected situations like that?
That's a good one, you know, because every week you're going to see unscouted looks, and it's something we talk about, and how do you prepare for the unscouted looks. And the way, in my opinion, that you best prepare for unscouted looks, things you haven't seen on film that they've never shown before, is you revert right back to your rule structure. And I think that every offensive play or defensive concept should have a structure of rules that account for really anything that you may or may not see, whether it's a count system, a point system, identification system. You have to have a rule structure. And so at times, as coaches, we get carried away with being so creative and wanting to be the guru and do something that's so unique that sometimes we lose track of what is fundamentally sound. And when you do that, you create real problems for your players. And so we have to be disciplined as coaches and make sure that every position we put our players in on the field has a structure, has a set of rules that they can follow to get through to get to the next play. That doesn't mean the play is going to be successful, And that doesn't mean they're going to be able to identify every unscouted look and have an answer, but you've got to work towards that. And that's what I've always found to be the case. I know defensively, it's really almost impossible to prepare for everything that you've seen on film. I mean, they show you so many different looks. So you've got to be able to follow your rules. And that's what we talk about, follow your rules. Your rules should carry you through anything that you may see that you haven't seen before.
Do you know Soso's got all his stuff out in Texas cleared?
As far as I know, I mean, he's been in school, he's doing well. He'll report on the 9th, and seems to be doing very, very well. Seems very happy.
No punishment or anything? He'll be right
All right,
on?
we'll wrap this up in about 5 minutes.
For me?
Yeah.
No, just going to San Bernardino. I love San Bernardino. I do. We can keep going there.
Coach, you guys are now using a virtual reality system.
We are.
To train your quarterbacks. How has that affected the development of the quarterbacks? Not so much as far as who's going to be number one, but how is that working out as far as helping develop?
You know, we're just introducing it, and we'll start to use it at camp. But I think what it'll do, and we'll use it for quarterbacks, we'll use it for running backs, we'll use it for the offensive line and linebackers specifically. You know, those that kind of have to identify looks and make decisions. I think what it'll do is it'll give them extra mental reps, you know, chances to not just visualize, but to actually see formations, adjustments, rush lanes, and things that they're going to have to react to in real life. So just give them extra mental reps.
Happy with the way it's worked out so far?
Well, we haven't really done a whole lot with it, but I believe that I will be happy with it. You know, Maurice Jones-Drew is the one that has introduced us to it, and I'm excited about it because he's excited about it, and they're excited to work with us, and I think it'll benefit our program.
What do you think that Tom Bradley brings that's a little different than maybe some of your past defensive coordinators? Does he kind of bring a different point of view to the table?
Like 35 years of college coaching experience. You know, the last two coordinators were NFL-based guys, and Tom is, 100% college football. He's been so successful at this level. I mean, I think he took an 8-year period of time, and I'll probably get this backwards, but I think he's number 3 in scoring defense and number 5 in total defense, or vice versa. And that doesn't just happen. Obviously you've got to have great players, but then you've got to have a man that knows how to put those players in position to make those plays, and that's what Tom does. He's outstanding. He's great. Gives me a high level of comfort.
Jordan, your young Sarah receiver, is he going to be a factor? Got a chance?
I've been very, very impressed with the way he has matured this year. He got off to a rough start last year, and it wasn't an easy first year for him. When we went to the bowl game down in San Antonio this year, something started to happen with him. He started to get it, and started to figure out, and he started to really earn the respect and trust of his teammates. And as we went through spring, I saw that become even more prevalent. And he's a talented young man who really now seems to be on the right path. And so I'm excited to see how he develops through camp and then into the year. So I think he can give us something.
How do you guys mentor a young kid like that who's
all hands on deck?
He had to be stunned by struggling at the beginning.
He struggled a little bit. I mean, it's all these young men adjust differently. You have some that come in and kind of make a smooth transition. You have some that come in and it's really difficult for them. But you try to surround them with the right types of people and put them in environments where they can succeed and mentor them along and help them work through their mistakes and understand why they may have made them. And some kids are homesick, some kids are lovesick, some kids it's easy for. I'm lucky I've got 4 kids in that age group, so I'm kind of dealing with the same stuff at home. Makes it not necessarily fun, but a little easier.
Coach, this is the 50th anniversary year of the Pro Rose Bowl team. Are you planning on doing anything as a program, planning on doing honoring them? Or?
I don't know that. Those are things that other people worry about. What I'm trying to do is just build a really good football team, and I'll let someone else worry about halftime and pregame. I try to worry about those 60 minutes.
Paul Perkins is secretly a big breakout year. What are you expecting from him, and kind of what's his ceiling, and what growth do you expect from him this year?
Paul is first of all, he's a tremendous young man. He really is a great teammate, team member, great representative of UCLA. He does it the right way. He's very underspoken, soft-spoken young man, doesn't like to self-promote, always quick to attribute his success to the players around him. I've seen him this offseason become an outstanding leader, you know, not necessarily by what he says, but by his actions. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's been very productive in the offseason. I think, you know, the combination of having an experienced offensive line, an experienced running back coming back, guys that can spell him, you know, take the load off of him a little bit, will help him be productive. I look for him to have a tremendous season. I think he'll build on the successes that he had last year.
All right, that'll wrap it up for UCLA. Again,